Well, opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one.
I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this before.
You know, Wobbles, I'm kind of mad at you.
And as a reasonable man, I'm willing to do whatever's necessary to find a peaceful solution to these problems.
Well, welcome to episode 1 of the Punching Up movie podcast. In an oversaturated market of movie podcasts, no one's asking for another one, but we thought in our hubris we would just offer up this idea. And the concept behind, well, first let me introduce myself. My name's Adam Nightingale, and
I'm Damian Asher.
The whole idea of this podcast is that we're movie lovers, but everyone has a movie that is in the canon, that is like a movie that's a kind of an acknowledged classic, or a beloved cult classic, or just simply incredibly popular that everyone has an issue with. You know, so I love movies, but there are certain movies that are esteemed classics that I don't like or have issues with it that take me out of the film.
And
Damian, I'm imagining that's the same for you.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so what we're going to do each episode, we're going to take a movie, and one of us is going to be a little bit more adversarial. In this instance, I'm going to have a pop at an acknowledged classic, and Damian will defend it. That's not always going to be the case. Sometimes we'll be united in our dislike of a movie, and sometimes one of us will just play devil's advocate. So the first movie, we thought we'd go big. We'd tackle an authentic titan, yes, the clues in the background, and you probably know, like if you've sort of tuned into this podcast anyway, that we're going to tackle 2001: A Space Odyssey, number 6 on both the AFI and the BFI best films of all time. And Damian, I think it's fair to say that you are an enormous fan of this film.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I've seen it countless times, but I think seeing it even this time, it may be like my favourite film of all time. It may be my number 1 film.
I didn't know that. I didn't know. I genuinely didn't know. I didn't know.
Yeah, you know what? It's just kind of cropped up, and I think the older that I've got, the more that I've appreciated it over the years. Yeah. And now I'm just looking at it going, it is a perfect film. Like, it's not a film that you can watch every day over and over again. It's not like a Goodfellas, you stick it on and you just carry on watching. But I think that once you get into that mode, for me, I think it might be number 1.
Yeah, it's not my number 1. I will qualify my issues with the film. Yeah. But before we do, I hate movie podcasts where they assume knowledge of the film. I don't hate it, but I get frustrated where people assume knowledge of the film. So, Damian, I'm springing this on you. This wasn't covered in our introductory notes. Could you just briefly summarize the plot? We'll talk about the sort of background, how the film came to be in a little bit. But could you summarize the plot of 2001: A Space Odyssey for me, please?
Yeah. It's a film in 4 chapters that charts the evolution of man from ape to uber being, and goes on a sort of space journey that has possibly one of the greatest villains in movie history. Mm-hmm. That is a computer, HAL 9000. And it's a meditative journey through humanity's evolution.
Brilliant. Well put. And so we will we'll just do our best between us to just talk about the sort of the circumstances in which the film came to be made, and how it achieved classic status and its impact on the culture now in about 5 minutes. It might take a little bit longer than that, because I have to say that it was released in 1968. There was a long gestation period, and it's the film. It's fair to say that I think it's fair to say that absolutely established the director Stanley Kubrick's reputation as a kind of unique visionary in cinema. But he was on his way there already, wasn't he? Yeah, because he'd had this string of incredible films, starting with what was, you know, the I suppose the first film that made any kind of real impact, I guess, was The Killing. I know he'd made some films before then.
Yeah,
Remind me what they are. Do you remember
Fear and
was,
Desire and
yeah.
The Killer's Kiss or Killer's Kiss.
And he did a very good short about a boxer as well.
Yeah. That came off the back of some of his photography that he'd done with Look magazine. But yeah,
but it was a sort of run of films. I might got the order slightly wrong, but Spartacus, which he was a gun for hire on Spartacus, wasn't he? He sort of was brought in by Stanley Kubrick. But then it was Lolita, Paths of Glory, and Dr. Strangelove. And Dr. Strangelove really, really starts to establish his reputation as a kind of visionary auteur. Some of the elements that he's going to really refine in 2001, like the incredible use of sort of pre-established music, like the "We'll Meet Again" sequence as the nuclear bombs are falling. And this establishes him commercially, critically, and he's pretty much off the back of the success of Dr. Strangelove given carte blanche to create what he wants. And in the research I did, that people seem to agree that the level of freedom he was given to develop his next project before or since has been unprecedented. So MGM, more or less, he wanted to make a science fiction film. It's very vague, wasn't it, as to what the concept was going to be. He just wanted to explore. He just wanted to explore the concept of awe and wonder in the universe. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. I think he was. I'd heard a little interview with him that he was talking about the idea that we're not alone, and that really fascinated him. Hence his getting in touch with Arthur C. Clarke, and seeing if they could come up with something that was interesting for his next project after the massive success of Dr. Strangelove, but also because I think was it Lolita came before. So it basically went The Killing, Paths of Glory, Spartacus, Lolita, Strangelove 2001, and so Lolita and Spartacus and Strangelove were all massive hits. I think Paths of Glory did pretty well, but
got banned in France. Not in France. You got banned in France, didn't it?
Which one? Paths of Glory.
Yeah.
But yeah, so as you said, coming off the back of particularly Dr. Strangelove, was given carte blanche in a way that, this is before Easy Riders, Raging Bulls, and all the 70s auteurs. He was, in a sense. I mean, who else was that? Who else was allowed to have that? I mean, I think he started working on it in 1964.
Yeah.
They started filming in start of
65.
65.
Yeah.
65.
Yeah, there was an awful lot of pre-production. Yeah.
2 or 3 years,
Yeah.
and he would have gone on had he not just totally run out of money and been really pressurized by it. They said that he would have done another year of it.
Yeah. So what he's doing in this, he's got very, very involved production process. He decides to shoot the majority of it in London, so that he can exert more control and sort of run interference on any studio interference. He's doing things like he's doing something like he's consulting with people involved in the space program. I think I'm right. To construct these spaceships, the like of which haven't been seen on a movie before. He's got over 100 model makers. He's shuts down production for a year, doesn't he? To figure out how to shoot the Dawn of Man sequence, which is the sequence at the beginning of the film involving sort of primitive man's encounter with this strange alien monolith and how that influences the evolution of the human. So they shoot still photography in Namibia, and then completely invent a forward projection system to project this background in a studio to shoot the Dawn of Man sequence. And then he hasn't got an ending for the film so they're kind of writing as they're going on, aren't they? And they don't quite know how to end the film. They don't know whether to use represent aliens, and so almost at the last hour. I'm not sure how this works chronologically because it doesn't quite fit the chronology, because they filmed the moon sequences first. They must have had the idea of the monolith established, but they might have wanted to use aliens. I don't quite understand the sort of chronology of his thought process on aliens, but basically until the 11th hour, they haven't really got an ending conceptually for the movie. And then they get involved in a psychedelic well, they don't get involved in a psychedelic experiment because Stanley Kubrick's very teetotal and very straight living, but they sort of draw heavily on a University of Boston thesis or academic paper where a bunch of theology students dropped acid or some kind of variation on acid, some hallucinogenic, went to I think it was a Catholic service, and then just reported what visions unfolded, and that becomes visually the basis of the famous Stargate sequence at the end, which is this kind of incredible. Did I say incredible? I'm going to slag the film off, so I'm not going to use the word incredible. this challenging, but admittedly visionary special effects sequence, which no one to this day can quite decipher the meaning of, and then he's inventing technology for that. And the other thing that he does is he hires Alex North, who he's worked with on Spartacus, to compose 40 minutes of music, tells him, I might not even use this music because as I'm editing the film, I'm using all these temp tracks of classical music. And then he sacks Alex North, and Alec North.
Well, he didn't even sack him. Apparently, he composed and recorded the music.
Yeah.
Kubrick had given him 2 weeks to do it. He'd given him 1 year to do Spartacus, but because Kubrick didn't want, he wanted the temp tracks, he wanted the classical music, but MGM didn't want that. They wanted a score. Every score back then. So he gets in touch with Alex North and gives him 2 weeks to try and do something as good as or better than Strauss's Blue Danube and
which is what Kubrick does to people, you know.
And I think he probably did that on purpose in order to. It was never going to happen. So the studios ultimately, because the release date was getting closer and closer, the studios would have then had to have agreed on the classical music. Sorry,
no, that was great. But it destroys Alex North's health because for some reason, like the intensity of composing puts his back out. He has chronic back problems, and then he's literally he's taken to recording sessions in an ambulance, and then none of his music, and then he somehow kind of forgives Kubrick when he sees the finished result. You know, he doesn't seem to hold a lot of animosity about it.
So apparently, when they were doing the recording, Kubrick was very enthusiastic about his work, but then apparently behind the set he was like, no, it's a piece of shit, I don't want it, it's rubbish, to his sort of inner circle, but I think that was more so for the fact that it just didn't hold up to the waltz and the tone of Zarathustra is. But also he gave Alex North the rights back to the soundtrack for him to use on whatever, and he used it on his son, sorry, I've got it written down here. His son, Stephen North, produced this film called Shanks by William Castle, which was about Marcel Marceau, a mime murder film, some weird 1975 film. But he used a piece of that music and it was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Score.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, and he got paid, most importantly.
Yeah, and he got paid for the
2001. Yeah, so there's millions and millions of stories like that. He nearly broke Arthur C. Clarke, who we didn't mention, is, at that point, is probably like the most respected and best-selling British science fiction author. And then the film sort of gets its preview to MGM executives, who a ton of them walk out, and people are just baffled by it. They don't quite know what to make of it. I think Arthur C. Clarke starts crying, and Kubrick's like confidence is shaken, and then I think it does quite well in advanced sales. I think what the moment it starts to hit the streets, it becomes a beneficiary of the zeitgeist. I would imagine, actually accidentally, I can't imagine any of this in the way that Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, obviously the book got a boost by hippies to the point where Tolkien didn't understand hippies, didn't particularly like them, didn't understand, but it was one of these things where the very, very straight living, reclusive Stanley Kubrick's movie got an amazing boost by the fact that it was the height of the sort of swinging 60s summer of love, and people came to watch it stoned. People dropped acid. It got endorsements by John Lennon and David Bowie, and it became this, like, to the point where once it started making money, and it made an enormous amount of money. I think it was the MGM's biggest, and I think it was the biggest, highest grossing film of the year, and MGM's sort of biggest pre-selling film since Dr. Zhivago. I think it outsold that. So it became this phenomenal. Everything was forgiven, and and Kubrick's made The King, who can do no wrong, and he pretty much makes films exactly the way he wants to for the rest of his life until he dies. And the extent of which the counterculture was responsible for the success of the film even altered the marketing, because the original poster was this picture of a spaceship docking in a space station, and then they changed it to the image that we've got behind us of the Star Child, and their poster tag was The Ultimate Trip. So that's enough. That's enough about blowing smoke up Kubrick's derriere. And
while we're talking about that, so that the first screening that happened to executives and to some of the critics, then Kubrick went away and cut 20 minutes of it.
Ah, right. Yes, of course. Yeah.
So I think there was just extended sequences in the Dawn of Man, extended sequences in the, and so he chopped the thing, and I think Pauline Kael, who originally hated it, then came back later, and some of them re-reviewed it, and then gave it positive review.
So that's the film. In terms of the film, the film's like gone on to become regarded as, I think it's fair to say, probably the greatest science fiction film ever committed to celluloid. I think you see its influence up to Star Wars. Star Wars sort of changes the way people perceive science fiction, and I would argue kind of dumbs science fiction down quite a bit. So even like sort of action movies are kind of rooted in a kind of there's a more of a cerebral approach to an action movie. Even something like Logan's Run is conceptually, quite, and then you see direct influences, because one of the great special effects artists that was involved, Douglas Trumbull, goes on to sort of make Silent. He made Silent Running. Is that correct? That he made Silent Running, didn't he? Yeah. Which you can see Kubrick's influence, and then there's a more flagrant sort of introduction of kind of counterculture ethos. Ridley Scott flagrantly admits the influence. In fact, he takes 2001, and he takes all the pristine aesthetics and sort of just rubbishes them up, doesn't he? To say, what happens if we had this approach to space travel, but it was all kind of shot worn and falling apart. And then he combines that, and he said he wanted to combine 2001 with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and he produces Alien. And then you have people reacting against it, which launches careers, because Dan O'Bannon, the screenwriter of Alien, or one of them, and John Carpenter combined forces to make Dark Star, which is a bit of a sort of two-finger salute to 2001, and it's kind of an argument against it in a way, and the perceived pretensions of 2001, which we'll talk about in a minute. So I think we've established. And its influence is still felt today. I think even people who don't know anything about 2001 would see its influence, because obviously the moment you hear Alsos Zarathusa, the first thing you think about is 2001. The moment you see anybody throwing a bone in the air and it going in slow motion, it's 2001. And the last place, and I only thought about this yesterday, the last place I saw a direct reference to 2001 is in the new Margot Robbie Barbie movie, where they just essentially, I don't know if you've seen the first trailer, they basically mock the Dawn of Man sequence in terms of the emergence of Barbie. So that's it's being referenced now in something as something as sort of conceptually far removed from Kubrick, and so you've got Greta Gerwig in a Barbie movie referencing 2001. So it reaches far and wide. It absolutely deserves its place in the canon as an iconic, I would even dare say, technically brilliant piece of cinema. Conceptually unique piece of cinema. Now, this is the Punching Up Movie podcast, so I have not come here, some say, to praise Kubrick, but just I don't know, just to try and punch him in the face, sort of theoretically, figuratively speaking. And so can I just explain my relationship with 2001? Largely positive until 2019, So I'd sort of grown up always aware of 2000. I can't remember a time when I wasn't aware of it. I think I first saw it on television, but even before then, I had this book I'd got as a child for Christmas on my birthday called Future Tense by John Brosnan, who was the editor of Starburst magazine, which I was quite taken with. And it was a sort of pre-Star Wars sort of just overview of science fiction, I think in the 60s and 70s. And it just had all these images of films I just wanted to see. And that was the first time I saw all of the spaceships in 2001. I remember my uncle lived in London. I remember even going to, because I think it had quite a long afterlife in the cinema. So it was showing in cinemas like sort of years and years after its release. And I even remember it being screened. I remember going past cinemas that showed 2001. I was always taken by lobby cards, and especially something like this, the Stargate. I think, what is this movie? And it just worked with my imagination. And I saw it on television. I think I must have seen it on television numerous times and enjoyed it. And then in 2019, they did a 4K restoration of it. And I'm from Nottingham. I live in Nottingham. There's a beautiful local cinema, art cinema there, the Broadway. They showed it in their biggest screen. I went to see this 4K resurrection, this 4K restoration. Sat there, and I have to say, during the Dawn of Man sequence, and the first time you hear with a decent sound system, Also Sprat Zarathustra, I was genuinely, I'm not being hyperbolic, I was genuinely in a state of awe. And I was thinking, it's very rare you see films that accurately replicate a sense of religious awe, and Kubrick did it. And then you've got the sequence where the ape, like, sort of, is sort of, evolution is altered. He learns how to use tools. He throws his bone in the air, and then you jump forward millions of years, and the bone almost becomes a spaceship. Oh, it's awe, absolute awe, heading out of Earth towards this space station, and then the ship carries on traveling through space, and then it carries on traveling through space, and I think it was taking quite a while to get to this space station, and my awe slowly starts to diminish and starts to be replaced with, I couldn't quite put a finger on it. I didn't even really want to admit what that feeling was. I thought, this might be boredom. And then they get into the space station, and there's a lot of chat, a lot of Leonard Rossiter from Rising Damp turns up, sort of livens the thing up a little bit as a Russian scientist, and then they sort of transition to the moon and then Jupiter, and then again it's just there's this phenomenal sort of set piece in the middle, or as I remembered it, where they the computer turns rogue and starts killing off members of the crew and whatnot, and everything was so slow. And then once we get to the bit where they get to the Stargate sequence, and you can use this as evidence against me, I was probably tired when I went into the cinema, because sometimes I'll go in after a day's work, and it's a long film, and the Stargate sequence is incredibly long. I think it's about like 15 minutes, isn't it? 15 minutes of light.
20 minutes even, yeah.
Yeah, 20 minutes, yeah.
Amazing.
I fell asleep in the Stargate sequence and woke up and it was still going on. And then we came out of the movie, and it was an utter revelation to me that I was actually bored during 2001. And I think it's a cardinal fault in the movie, which we can kick about and discuss. And it sort of tainted the movie for me, from that point on. And there is a review, because I held back quoting the reviews, because there is a view, because I wasn't the only person that felt this. And there's a quote from the Times. I'm not sure if it's New York Times, but it says the film exists somewhere between hypnotic and immensely boring.
Yeah, I heard that.
Hypnotic and immensely boring, and that was my relationship with the film. Now I admit, my take on 2001: A Space Odyssey is it's an immaculate, visionary, brilliant, boring masterpiece. But it's the boring bit that is to me, that's the kind of unassailable hurdle in my enjoyment of the film. Can I quote Tennessee Williams? Can I get really pretentious? Quote Tennessee Williams. Tennessee Williams once said, the first duty of any artist is not to bore his audience. That's the first thing. And Kubrick does that. And so everything else is tainted by that, but in that movie. So we could talk about other Kubrick films. Yeah. But in this movie, I think it's brilliant. I think it's an astonishing, brilliant, utterly boring movie. And there we go. Yeah.
I think it's possibly like the time that you watched it, the place. Time and place is such a key element. And a film like this is like, it sort of requires a different set of viewing parameters, I think. And I think that, you can't, it's like I said at the start, you can't watch it every day. You can, I mean, I suppose you could, but you have to be in a certain place. And sometimes you're just not. I mean, I've watched it before and sort of nodded a little bit in the past. But that's not really because I've been bored. I think that's more because I've been hypnotized by it, or being in a place where I've been a little bit tired. But my experience with 2001, I think I saw it in its entirety first when I just left drama school in North Finchley, 1993, and I watched it on a 14-inch portable television. With speakers. Had the speakers, so the sound was bigger than the screen. But that time was like such an amazing thing that I could get this sound that was so big. You know, we didn't have those big TVs, and so the music and the sound design tainted my enjoyment or my experience of the film. And I think I was just so blown away because at that time, in my early 20s, I was interested in all the psychedelics. I was interested in that whole world, and so it seemed to represent. And even watching it now, I'm watching that Stargate sequence and going, "It's incredible that Kubrick didn't take acid or DMT or do anything like that," because there are moments in that sequence that are, from experience, the same as doing that.
But that's the thing, because I don't want you to, you know, we're all past statutes of limitations here, aren't we? And so,
of course,
I don't want you to implicate yourself in anything.
Oh no, mate.
But I know. I thought, but you have taken hallucinogenics, haven't you?
Yeah.
And do you think that makes a difference? Because I haven't. And do you think it makes a difference if in your relationship with the film, if you have that sort of experience to sort of line it up with, or sort of you?
It's subjective, isn't it, really, I think. For me personally, and for another friend of mine he was really into the film, he was the one who told me to watch it. You know, he'd seen it a few times, and I think it enhances it, especially in your 20s. Now, I don't know. Now I think that you don't have to. We're in our 50s now. It's a different time, and we've lived a lot longer than that sort of youthful exuberance that you have when you're 20s. I think at the time definitely it had some it benefited me.
So have you watched it while you were tripping? Have you watched
no
it
I've not watched any films while I was tripping. People do that and I just don't understand it at all. I've watched it stoned many times. So
which was the majority. I wouldn't say the majority. I mean, because you can't build an entire box office like that on everyone being stoned, but effectively, So I mean, a lot of people would have watched it stoned. I would say more people. I don't know. I've got no evidence for this. More people, I would imagine, would have watched it stoned than sort of having dropped acid or something before seeing it.
I mean, I would say so. But then in the 60s, it was a different time. People were doing things differently. So
my response to that is I've watched many films that would have been considered ostensibly boring, which you alluded to. There's a film I was once quite obsessed with called La Belle Moisseuse with Emmanuel Béart, which is literally a 4-hour movie about a man painting a woman. And it's literally a film about watching paint dry on many levels, if you want to be sort of slightly flippant about it. But it's mesmeric. It's absolutely mesmeric, and there's kind of, and I'll tell you why it's mesmeric, because and this is a decision on Kubrick's part not to do this. It's mesmeric because it's like a battle of wills between two humans, an artist and his model, and he's trying to sort of break her down in the way that the drama studio might break you down as an actor or something like that, who in a corner in your audition or something like that, or things I've heard them do. It's about him trying to. So there's the human element in there, which is deliberately extracted from 2001. So he's obviously made a decision to render his humans as, I'm going to use the word bland and as adenine as possible, in order to contrast them with the most compelling character in it, which I admit I would say he's the greatest computer ever. He's brilliant, and I think this should be. I think this should be Oscars for voice acting. I always think. And was it Douglas Rain who plays Hal? I don't think he's known for anything else, is he? I'm not sure. I'm not looked at his IMDb page, but here's that. Because I think there's certain voices that just make things, like the person who does the voice for the Ghostface in all the Scream movies. It's that voice is such an important, integral part of the horror of that movie, and Hal's voice is incredible, and it is this kind of slightly effete, monotone voice, isn't it? And the one bit I think where the slowness really works in the film's favor is where Dave the astronaut is dismantling, essentially killing Hal, and he's erasing his memory banks. And the slowness of hearing him, being stripped back. Did you say murder?
Yeah,
self-defense. It's like
it's still murder.
Are we going to argue about
murder in self-defense? Then there you go.
No, Hal's trying to kill them. He's defending himself, and he's just removing all of Hal's memory banks, essentially erasing his personality. And you have Hal kind of reduced to famously, singing Daisy Daisy, and then you hear, you hear a human voice, just kind of instigating Hal. And like, this is a test recording, and so it's an interesting choice because the apes have more personality. I'm not saying this facetiously. The apes have more personality than humans. Leonard Rossiter is the only human, and I find it fascinating. I love seeing actors that are famous. I'm assuming I'm talking as if everybody knows who Leonard Rossiter is, because this might be listened to. We don't know where this is going to be listened to. If you don't know who Leonard Rossiter is, in England, he's
Google him.
Incredibly famous for 2 sitcoms like Rising Down and the Rise and Fall of Reginald Perry. But prior to that, he was character actor. Joe Orton used him a lot in his plays, and he's in a couple of Kubrick movies, isn't he? He's in this, and he's in Barry Lyndon, and he's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant in Barry Lyndon. And this, he has a 5-10 minute role. When you say 5 minutes, you've got to make an adjustment. So it's 5 minutes in any normal movie. It's going to be 10 minutes in 2001. Yeah, and he's the only person with any sort of like deliberate charisma in it. And so Kubrick's made this decision to kind of strip back the humanities, whereas in 2001, the humans almost have no humanity, and the machine does, and the apes do. And in La Belle Nasuus, I've mispronounced it, but the film about painting, you've got this struggle of wills between these two very, very charismatic sort of French movie stars, and things like that. Now, I didn't watch La Belle Nasuus all the way. I watched it on VHS. I watched it in chunks, which you can use against me. But I did watch 2001 from beginning to end, which I think you have to do. I think you can chunk it. It's in chapters or movements, because it's very symphonic, isn't it? And but I think for the sake of this podcast, if you're gonna have integrity and slagging something off, you got to try and see it the way it was intended. So you can't see it at the cinema. Watch it all the way through without pee breaks. You got to go to the toilet. You can't help it. 2000. But go in your trousers if you have to, just to maintain the integrity. And so I don't know. And I saw it in the best screen I could have seen it on, and I went in with such high expectations, and I was really, really looking forward to it. And for 20 minutes it had me, and then it just lost me in increments because of its almost, I would say, studiously deliberate boringness. And I think it's deliberate, even though he edited it. I think there's something perverse or conceptual that I don't understand that Kubrick is doing. That is I'm going to make a boring movie, and you're going to watch it, and you're going to be compelled by it, but it's still going to be boring. So there's these two things like kind of like bumping up against each other.
I don't know. I think that he was making an incredibly artistic film, that he wasn't pandering to. So obviously, when you said I'm going to make a boring movie, nobody wants to make a boring movie, right? But I think that he makes a film that is his own artistic film. That if you're into it, you're into it, and if you're not, fuck it. I think unapologetic, I think, is the word. Watching it again this time, mesmeric how you described La Belle Noiseuse.
Yeah.
Is how I found watching it this
Yeah.
time. You'd said in a previous conversation that we had that, like, was it this film that like every still is like a piece of art?
Yeah,
you know,
it is. Yeah,
and it does feel like that, and the movement of that, and the music. You see, I think that if you know, you were saying like the apes and the and Hal were the most sort of had the most personality, or were the most human. Out of the whole characters. I think the music is another.
No, I agree with that.
I think there's another character, especially the Blue Danube. The Blue Danube is the only piece of music. It's the only part of the film that is light. There's nothing else in the film. There's no jokes. There's no pratfalls. There's no banter at all. Yeah. And even the rest of the music is terrifying. Like the Richard Strauss Zarathustra is terrifying. All the Giorgi Ligeti avant-garde music, which is sort of like background. You know, he used lots of it, but it feels like background music. Is terrifying, mate. You know, it's like these sort of angelic, like twisted, angelic, discordant sounds that. And the Blue Danube is the only, and it crops up again. So then, obviously, when the first weapon goes up in the air and then changes into it's an armed satellite. Is what it changes into. So it's a weapon to a weapon. It doesn't. That's not explicit at all. And actually, in the book, with this scene behind us, there's people on Earth nuclear bombing each other, and the Star Child comes down and just destroys all the nuclear bombs.
You see, I'm glad they didn't put that in. So I'm glad they didn't put that. Yeah, I'm glad they didn't put that in. I'm glad it wasn't explicit, because I think what makes this film interesting is that there's no crisis on Earth. It's a kind of, it's an antiseptic utopia, basically.
Yeah.
And so you know, because you have that in other side. I mean, I was thinking when I was watching it, like, say, is it Sunshine, Danny Boyle film?
Yeah.
You know, and they're, you know, that's quite 2001-esque in many respects, you know. But they're escaping a catastrophe in pretty much everything this influences, you know, like directly, some kind of dystopia that you're escaping. And I like the fact that there isn't, you know, that all of that's like that this is humanity, probably it's its technological apex. Everyone seems boringly happy in what they do, or content. And then this event happens, you know, and we don't know to what end. So I think if the Star Child was coming here to do a specific job, it wouldn't be as powerful. And I really like the ambiguity of the film. I like the ending. I absolutely love the way Kubrick uses classical music, and I think he's peerless in that. And that will go on, you know, to, you know, kind of pretty much everything else he does. If it's not classical music, it's, you know, the way he uses music is just so unique and counterintuitive and brilliant. And, you know, the obvious example being the way Beethoven's used and sort of synthesized in Clockwork Orange is astonishing. The music, and I can't remember what it is, the music that opens the, you know, the music that opens The Shining. But it's just boring, and in the way that other Kubrick films aren't. It's just, I find it boring in a way that I don't find The Shining boring, or I don't find, or most of The Shining, you know, I don't find the first half of Clockwork Orange compels me. The second half kind of tests my patience a little bit, and so, I mean, what's your take on everything post 2001? Do you like? I mean, do you like Kubrick? I know you love Kubrick because we both, didn't we? We both independent of each other. You got me into it. We both went to the Kubrick exhibition. Was it at the Museum of Design in London just before lockdown?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was phenomenal. Oh, that was interesting because they had the 2000. This will annoy you. They had the 2001 exhibit, right, in that, because it was amazing. It was one of the best exhibitions I've ever been to. And they do it film by film, don't they? And 2001, you have this huge 2001, you know, with you know, and what they do is they have a bit where they just show clips of the film. So I thought, well, am I going to be less bored if I just see this in little 20-minute chunks? You know, that's just what. And I think I might have watched the loop. I might be. This was a long time ago, so my memory might be playing tricks on me. And I'm thinking, nah, I'm still bored. Still bored. You've got time. You've got 20-minute chunk. I'm still bored. You've reduced to 20
They
minutes.
had it on the big screen, didn't they? They
did. So
yeah.
it was just like you're sitting there and you think, no, I'm still bored.
It's like what you're into, right? Or like what sort of piques your interest. Me,
but you know the sorts of things that pique my interest. So
of course.
Go on.
And it's not that you're one level by any means.
Have at me. Yeah.
Yeah, there are lots of things. The Meg 2 comes to mind, or the Meg,
which I haven't seen.
But I think that for me, I just love the majesty of it all, the beauty of it all. It's like a moving museum. What does he do? He uses tableau vivant in Barry Lyndon, sort of like moving stills, so they're just there for a long time. I find that fascinating. Like there was something that we saw recently, I don't know if it was The Souvenir or something that had that in it that I enjoyed. Like it can test your patience and it can be sometimes a little bit pretentious. But I don't know, with Kubrick, it's interesting because people like Christopher Nolan, I don't like Christopher Nolan's films really. We've talked about this before.
And you realise you've condemned yourself to doing a Christopher Nolan film.
Of course, we'll have to do what's that? Inception, which I hate, but for the sake of punching up, I hated it. So we can do that, and I'll probably, who knows, I might like it next time. But Christopher Nolan is similar to Kubrick in the sense that quite a lot of his films are, without personality is not the right word, but without there's a humanity missing. There's a coldness to it.
Yeah.
And 2001 is the extreme example of that. But all his films are like that, I think.
No, but I think that's. But I think that's a little. I don't completely agree with that because I don't think his film. I think there is a sort of detachment to it, but I don't think. I think in I don't think there's a coldness to Clockwork Orange because it's built around Malcolm McDowell's performance. And The Shining's built around Jack Nicholson, so it's built around these kind of absolutely blazing movie star sort of character actors. The first half of Full Metal Jacket is utterly built around Arlie Ermey's drill sergeant, so they're built around these very, very sort of striking, charismatic characters. And so what sort of elevates them in terms of your engagement are these performances. So I mean, Barry Lyndon's interesting because Ryan O'Neal is arguably slightly miscast, and is a little bit bland, but he surrounds him with these incredible character actors, all sort of sort of Patrick McGee, and Hardy Kruger as well, like Mr. Wild Geese and The One That Got Away, and I when I watched Barry Lyndon, I didn't realize he was in it, and he's phenomenal, and even Eyes Wide Shut, which I actually like. I'm one of the few people in the I quite like Eyes Wide Shut. Tom Cruise, whatever you think about him, he has charisma, and Nicole Kidman, two of the probably like greatest movie stars of the last sort of 30, 40 years. And then, lots of really interesting character actors, and fired character actors like Harvey Keitel, wasn't in it, but Sidney Pollock's kind of great, so there's that human element, which I think it's interesting because it's now a good time to admit the reveal, the kind of reveal that in the conditions of. One of the conditions of nominating a film is that you got to watch it again, and then say what you thought. So I watched it in the living room in the house where I live, and on a Sunday afternoon when everyone else was out of the house, from beginning to end without a pee break. I might have gone to the toilet in the actual. It has an actual intermission.
Yeah, intermission. I did as well.
Yeah. So I think that's legit to go for a pee break then, and I didn't find it quite as boring as the last time I saw it. So I'm not sure if that's as far as I'm meant to get. I found it. It was interesting. I did find it boring, but I found it sort of compellingly boring. Am I just quoting? Yeah. No, I'm not quoting. That's compellingly boring, in a sense that I'm kind of glad it was made the way it was, and I don't know why. I was thinking, well, if I was allowed into the editing room and had the skill to do it, just to sort of fix it. Would I? And I don't think I would, because I don't know why. I think it should exist the way it is because it's unique, even in the sort of challenging boringness of it, which seems to have purpose and is oddly compelling. So I sort of leaned a little more towards it. it wouldn't be. I don't know. I would probably watch this. If I had to watch one Kubrick film, like it'd probably be The Shining. Or The Killing or Spartacus. But I don't know. I just sort of lent a little bit more towards it. Don't quite as hate it as I didn't really hate it, but I don't quite as hate it or feel the need to sort of defecate on it or punch up at it as much as I did do. But it is still, and if you can have a neutral way of saying boring without it being loaded, it still is boring. But its boringness is almost a point of pride that makes you kind of like it in spite of yourself.
Yeah, it challenges you in a way that most films don't, and for that, you said before, it is the greatest science fiction film ever made. Like, I think it's
I said people say it's the greatest science fiction.
Yeah,
I think on many levels it probably is the greatest science fiction film. But I would maybe I don't
regardless of whether you enjoyed it or not.
But I think enjoyment has to be a factor in watching a movie. It can't be some sort of art can't be a torture chamber, can it? I don't think.
No, but again, it's not a torture chamber for everybody, is it? For me, I enjoy watching it. It's not a. There's no part of it that's painful or I can't speed this up. I'm in it. Like there's a reason why. How many films did he make? 9 films or something altogether. There's a reason why that film exists in the way that it does, and I think, as you said, if it was edited, it would detract from it. I think you have to be challenged by a film like this. Everybody can go and see Star Wars, and they can go and see all the rest of the science fiction that are out there that's really easy to digest and, takes you along on or the latest Guardians or one of those Marvel films, they're not challenging.
But that's not what you'd stack up against. It's you'd stack up I wish I'd had the sort of patience and the time to watch, say, like, because I think the science fiction films that are the most comparable are like Tarkovsky ones, Stalker and Solaris.
I have to see Solaris. I haven't seen it. Which could be boring, which I mean, they kind of but I mean, I saw Stalker so long ago I can barely. I mean, I read Zona, the book. I think the book on Stalker, but I could barely remember the film from reading. When you say the book on Stalker, is that?
Oh no, it's a book. I can't remember who wrote it. He's a film critic. He wrote a book on the making of Stalker and what Stalker means. Just called Zona, and it's a really good book. And it made me want to watch the film again, but obviously not enough to actually watch it because I didn't. But there, so in a sense, sort of comparing it to Star Wars is a little bit disingenuous, or unfair. I think comparing it to something like, I mean, you got direct links with Douglas Trumbull. Comparing it to Blade Runner, which is a very philosophical, ideas-driven science fiction film, but also has, that also plays with the idea of a sort of replicated life form that exhibits more humanity than the actual humans, but also throws in a few fights and Daryl Hannah, like pants and stuff like that. It's kind of or Alien even. Alien's a good sort of comparison because Ridley Scott invites it. He invites the comparison. It's like you take 2001, you add a bit of dirt, you throw in a monster, and this is what you've got, and things like that. But I guess sort of compare. Be interested to go and watch Stalker or watch Solaris and see if I find them compelling, because I think they're. And also, I think
like this, you have to be in the right frame of mind for it, and I don't think that we can always put ourselves in this.
No, but I was in the right frame of mind. That's the thing. When I went to see it at the cinema,
you wanted to see it.
I wanted to see it, and I was excited. And for 20 minutes or 25 minutes, 20 minutes Kubrick time, probably 40 minutes, I was really, really, really engaged and it induced a sense of, genuinely induced a sense of awe, and that was what I think. That was why I took against it, because I felt like that awe was subsequently betrayed by the next 2 hours of not stasis. I'm just going to say stasis, of narrative stasis, and then sort of a massive light show that I nodded off in the middle of, and things like that. But I take I take a percentage of that back on second viewing. And I tell you, I even enjoyed the light show. I thought, I can't believe how long this is, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the Stargate sequence. I actually enjoyed that second time round since I saw it in 2019. Okay.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about with 2001 as well. Like just doing the research that I did over the last few weeks, documentaries that I saw, the articles that I read. I've got the Stanley Kubrick archives, which gives you like little sections on each film, and reading about Douglas Trumbull's like split screen way that he filmed the.
I heard about that. I didn't really understand what that was, but I
don't really understand it. I kind of want to see I want to see a YouTube video to sort of show me what it is. But the drops of oil or whatever that were going in the water that Kubrick had filmed like way before they started filming, just to see what it looked like. It's incredible. I mean, the attention to detail is unsurpassed.
I agree. And he's the detail man par excellence, isn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, everyone who works with him, who's alive and has told stories about him and talked about his attention to detail, pretty much broke everyone. I think there's an interesting phenomenon that no one works. Loads of people work with him twice, but no one works with him 3 times. I was thinking about all the actors that work with him and writers. So you got Kirk Douglas who works with him twice. Timothy Carey, the character actor, works with him twice. Leonard Rossiter works with him twice. I don't think any movie star, apart from Kirk Douglas, and he was calling the shots. He was kind of hiring Kubrick, so it's like different. Has worked with him more than once, So it's sort of fascinating that they, and they all kind of, but it's all among some of the most seminal stuff they've ever done. So that's the deal with the Kubrick devil that you do, isn't it? He's going to break your, he's going to test your mental health and push you to the limits, and make you almost want to not work again. Yeah, and he didn't break. You didn't get the sense that he broke Tom Cruise. Then Tom Cruise is kind of in his own weird way cut from similar cloth. He's like a meticulous detail man, isn't he? Have you? Because I know you have many friends in the industry. Do you know anyone who's worked with Kubrick?
No, but I did meet somebody recently who had been to Kubrick's house. This was, I think, after he died, or was it before he died? Because they were filming a short film there, and he was sworn to secrecy. But trying to think.
You can't say. So you can't say. You can't say what you saw in Kubrick's house. That's very. He found his diary. He found Kubrick's diary.
Half-inched it.
My own movie. Really boring.
2001. Adam Nightingale is right. 2001 was so boring. I made sure that I did it to torture people.
Went through the Stargate.
Again, going back to that, I think like the meditative quality of it, the philosophical quality of it, the ideas of it, those are the things that really those are the things that
I get that, and I wish we had more I wish we had more boring science fiction films with better ideas than what we get at the moment, so I mean I would accept a dollop of boring against a kind of another Transformers movie, or which I suppose is technically science fiction. Do you know my brother nearly worked for Stanley Kubrick? Have I told you this?
No, you tell me more. Tell me.
I will tell the viewers or the listeners or however they're receiving this. My brother is a former professional dancer, and weirdly enough, he was in Panto. I went to see that Panto, and he was in the chorus of a Panto in York. But the choreographer, I'm not sure if I say the choreographer. Choreographer was, choreographer was Pat Garrett. So he's named after the sort of famous. I'm not sure if her parents actually named after the person who shot Billy the Kid, but she's called Pat Garrett anyway.
Your favourite Peckinpah film? My
favourite Peckinpah film, and so she was working on Eyes Wide Shut in some capacity in the famous mass ballroom sequence, and she either offered my brother a role or an audition for a role, and he was at the time he was doing a theatre and education tour, and he did not want to break contract, so he was very honourable, genuinely honourable person, and to take the role would have been to leave this company in a lurch, and so he said no, And so if this was a movie, you know, someone would hear about that and offer him, you know, that bit in Honey, the I can't remember the Jessica Alba movie. Yeah, I've not seen the dance movie. You don't know what I'm talking about, do you? The Jessica Alba dance movie, and you've got a bit where Missy Elliott comes in as herself and goes, "Get me Honey Daniels," you know. So I don't know. I've not seen the film. I've not seen all of it. But at some point, you know, she's like, kind of whatever she's done. There's been some point of integrity. If you're Honey fans and you're watching this, if you're Honey fans, you've tuned in for a 2001 podcast. It's highly
I
unlikely.
respect your eclectic sort of taste.
exactly. You know, and you know, so I can't remember. I can't remember the film. I'm assuming that there's something that's kicked her out of the dance community. That Missy Elliott's like seen her at some kind of college dance show, and then comes and goes, "Get me Honey Daniels," like that. And that should have been how that story ended with my brother. You know, it's like, who's that guy that turned down Kubrick? The call never came, and you know, he was never in Eyes Wide Shut 2 or Honey 2. So that's my Kubrick story once removed, which we can cut out if it's ridiculous.
No, not at all.
I think it's a good time to wrap things up and introduce next episode's movie. So having probably tried and failed to dislodge Kubrick's science fiction masterpiece, we're going to have a pop at Martin Scorsese next. Having not learned our lessons, and little visual clue there, we're going to be doing New York. No, we're going to be doing Raging Bull, his 1980 masterpiece of sports dysfunction and toxic masculinity. So we'll be having a pop at Raging Bull next time. So from Nottingham, England, I'm going to say goodbye.
From Sydney, Australia, I'm going to say goodbye. And from the moon, the star child and the moon.
Yeah. Oh,
goodbye.
Bye.
See you next time.
Take care. Bye.
The mission has been completed.
Groovy.